the other night too.
Okay, down. If you're over 60, stand up. Thank you. God, I thought it was really You can see where the average age is. It's in the 30 to 40.
Yep.
That's where most of the people were. So the collecting age is not older, it's really younger. So our hobby, I don't think, is disappearing because of age. And it's not. The younger people are the ones that are going to take the older people's place. If you want to buy a good collection, I'll give you my address. You can talk to my wife once I'm there.
I feel like I should jump in here. Charlie's right. I see a lot of young collectors entering the hobby and collecting with as much passion, if not more so, than the older collectors. And it's great. I think it's an important part of the hobby to make sure that when you guys get older and drop out, that there are people who still care about this stuff, because otherwise people won't care about it and you won't have a healthy, thriving community where you can come to Celebration and come to these timeless talks and get your free cereal boxes, because people won't care about it, just like they didn't care in the late 80s, early 90s. So it's important to make sure that there's a young, thriving, healthy, young community, and I do see that, and it's great to see all the young people here, so it's fantastic.
And to take this back to our scientific side of things, the analysis shows that a hobby is in danger when the average age of collectors is like 65. And so we're obviously in good shape along those lines as well. Another warning sign of an endangered hobby is when collecting clubs start disappearing. And I've collected some statistics here. These charts show attendance figures for a major collecting club and also for an online-only club. And while the online email list type of club kind of shows a decline toward the end. In fact, I used Excel to add the little best fit curve or whatever. It actually dips below zero at the end. But the lower graph is for a collecting club that meets in person, not just online. And for the whole curve is for the last 6 or 7 years. And you can see the curve starts down, which was basically after Revenge of the Sith, but it's coming back up in the last couple of years, so that's a really good sign in my opinion. Another warning sign of a disappearing hobby is when you don't find items for sale at shows. Charlie, do you have any experience with this? Well, this is a special show because it's only Star Wars, but...
Did anybody buy anything?
Yeah, even I bought something.
How many are going to sneak it in the house? We have a charity pin that's... Oh, that's not it.
Whoa.
We have a charity pin that's small and you can sneak it in the house and it fits in your pocket. Your wife will never know you brought it home.
My pockets are so big I can put cereal boxes in them. Ugh. All right, another warning sign of an endangered hobby is low eBay sell-through rate. Now, sell-through rate means the percentage of items being offered that actually end up selling. And according to my research, the average sell-through rate across all of eBay is 30%. So in other words, when you put something on eBay, there's a 3 in 10 chance that it'll sell. Yeah. Scientifically, but you know, some items are better than others. But anyway, and I did a quick look on the Star Wars category, and it looked like Star Wars items had about a 50% sell-through rate, which is outstanding. Yeah, really. So that's way above average, relatively speaking. So again, the hobby's in pretty good shape along those lines.
when you look at eBay to try to find out what something is worth, be sure and look at what items sell for, not what people are asking for. That's what somebody thinks it's worth. What it's really worth is what somebody's willing to pay for it.
Or more accurately, it might be what they hope it's worth with that initial listing, right?
Another warning sign of an endangered hobby is when you see no new price guides being published. I put together a little graph here. It's kind of compressed over time. So at the beginning there were those little tiny books, and they kind of semi-updated themselves every year. But obviously in recent years we've seen a lot more price guides, better price, not just bigger, because obviously everything has to be bigger because there's more stuff, but they're much better price guides. So again, the hobby's in no danger according to that statistic. Another warning sign of an endangered hobby is when it's no longer covered in major magazines. And when they look at other collecting hobbies, that's kind of works when you're talking about certain antique categories, because you got antique magazines, and then is your specific category that you collect being covered in the magazine or not? I'm not sure how well this statistic works for Star Wars collecting, but anybody read a lot of trade magazines and notice if Star Wars is in there consistently? Charlie?
If you look at some of the magazines, I believe it's the Action Figure Guide, they have a section in there about investment, and he will tell you in there what the publisher or the editor thinks is going to be a good investment for Star Wars. It's not just Star Wars, it's G.I. Joe, it's Mattel, it's a lot of stuff. And the more dollar signs there are, the higher the investment value this particular person thinks it's going to be. Not always true, but it's not been too bad recently, because I look at it every now and then. You're going to find that in magazines that are specific for toys, you do find a lot of Star Wars things there, because there's always new Star Wars stuff coming out. I'm thinking of George Carlin. But in magazines like, are you guys too young to remember George Carlin? Thank you. In magazines like the Antiquing World, you do see Star Wars things in there, but you see the older Star Wars things that came out, God, when I was 30 already. So they're calling those antiques. So it depends on what you're getting.
I'll call him anything because he can't hear him anyway.
But the magazines do show Star Wars things in there, but if you look at Star Wars compared to G.I. Joe or compared to another toy line, you see just as many articles about Star Wars as you do the other toy lines in the antiquing magazines. So it's not that we're not in the magazines, we're in there as much as any other particular toy line, just that toys are not covered as much. Unless you want to talk about tin trucks from the 30s and 40s, they're covered much more than toys from the 60s and 70s or the 80s, as in Star Wars movies.
And then overall, I mean, with magazine coverage, we extend that beyond, the collecting magazines. It's somewhat cyclic. When a movie comes out, episode 1, when it came out, every magazine had Star Wars on the cover, inside, and then after the release of the movie, it dropped off. Episode 2 coming back, spiked again. Episode 3, it spiked. So different events will, pique everybody's interest, including, collectible magazines. They'll have more emphasis on, Star Wars collectibles if a big event is coming out. So, but overall, the general trend, over a long period of time would be a decrease, if the hobby was starting to disappear.
Another warning sign is when information starts disappearing.
So this was a point of departure between Martin and the rest of us on the panel. Martin is a pretty skeptical and cynical kind of guy, and I'll let him give his point of view after I give mine, which I believe represents the rest of the panels, which is the internet has been nothing but fantastic for collecting, especially collecting information. Nowadays, it's very easy to find out what something is going for, what you think how much you can expect to get something for. You can determine authenticity many times from photos. You can share information regarding events, new products, old vintage toys. It's just been nothing but a blessing, in my opinion, for collecting. And I think the smart collector is one who realizes that you're not just buying toys or products or anything else that you might be interested in, but also you're collecting knowledge. And I think knowledge will give the upper hand, all else being equal, to collectors. The one who has the knowledge about how much something is worth, where you can get it, what to look for, it'll really pay dividends in the end. And so in that regard, I think that the internet and new technology, cheap Skype calls, I call Mark discussing products all the time that I like to collect. It's been great, it's been fantastic, and I think it's been an incredible blessing for collectors. Martin, you want to say what you think about it?
Yeah, the internet and all this technology makes it easy to, in a sense, create information, but it's just as easy to lose and delete that information too. 20 years ago or whatever, when all we had were news groups, that's where all the information was, really. And where is that information now? It's hard to find. Some of it maybe has been transcribed, in a sense, into databases or whatever. But in general, I think the old news groups are gone. And why can't the same thing happen to all the information out there today? You got your...
We've learned from our mistakes. We store everything properly. No?
Well, it's not just being good stewards of the data, but sometimes the technology just may shift in a way that makes it impossible to carry on that data.
If you don't do well with computers, I print it all out when I find it, because I can never go back and find it a second time. So I print it, and I have notebooks full of the information, all stored in different categories. But I have to figure out how to turn the computer on first, much less how to find something on it. So once I found it, I print it, and I save it that way. I'd much rather have a book in front of me than a computer in front of me. But I do think the internet has created much more information for us to find, much more detailed, much more varied information. So I think, again, Mark and I had this discussion before, that the computer has helped us. It's brought people together from all over. 20 years ago, if I wanted to find out what was available in Australia, how was I going to do that? I wasn't going to fly there. Now, I got people that live in Australia I can contact on email, and they answer me, given the time difference, in a fairly short amount of time. So it's not like I have to wait 3 weeks for a letter to be mailed and mailed back to me. So in that sense, I think it brings us much closer together. It brings us more information.
Well, if you're only a consumer of the internet and you don't know how things work behind the scenes, you won't appreciate how easy it is for stuff to break or disappear. I bet the guys who run the infamous archive, there's probably 2 guys who, if they got hit by a bus, the site would be dead. So
I don't know how it works. It works just fine. I use it all the time on my car.
I think Martin needs a hug, so if you see him out
all right. Another warning sign.
Speaking of hugs.
He must be a huggable guy, right? Big teddy bear. But yeah, big thing is community. All of us here, the celebration shows how tight our community is, how large it is, how diverse it is. Many of us have traveled, thousands of kilometers to get here. So is the community growing in strength? One celebration to the next gets bigger and bigger. The more people come out, the next generation is brought in. Again, my son, he's 10. So I'm seeing